Welcome to Cozy Reads. In today's video, we're pleased to bring you a brief yet immersive storytelling summary of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Take a moment to relax and let's explore this imaginative and fantastical tale together. Alice was sitting with her sister on a grassy riverbank on a sunny afternoon. Her sister was reading a book without pictures or conversations, which Alice found dreadfully boring. As her eyes began to close in drowsiness, she noticed something quite peculiar. A white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her. This rabbit, however, wasn't like any rabbit she'd ever seen. He was dressed in a waistcoat and carried a pocket watch, exclaiming, "Oh dear! Oh dear! I shall be late!" Without thinking, Alice jumped to her feet and chased after him, burning with curiosity. The rabbit led Alice to a rabbit hole, and without hesitation, she jumped in after him. To her surprise, she found herself falling down a deep well. The fall seemed to last forever, but it was strangely gentle, and as she floated down, she saw cupboards, bookshelves, maps, and pictures lining the walls of the tunnel. She grabbed a jar of marmalade from a shelf, but, finding it empty, put it back. At last, she landed softly on a bed of dry leaves in a strange hallway with many locked doors. Alice tried all the doors but found them all locked. She then came upon a little glass table with a tiny golden key. She tried the key in all the locks but found that it didn't fit any of them. Frustrated, she noticed a tiny door behind a curtain. To her delight, the key fit this door perfectly. Opening it, she peered through and saw a beautiful garden filled with bright flowers and cool fountains. But she was too large to fit through the doorway. Disappointed, Alice returned to the table and found a bottle labelled "Drink Me." After checking to see if it was marked poison, she decided to drink it. The liquid tasted delicious, and as she drank it, she began to shrink until she was only 10 inches tall. Now small enough to fit through the door, she realised she had left the key on the table, which she could no longer reach. As she searched for a way to reach the key, Alice found a small cake with the words "Eat Me" written on it. Hoping it would make her grow again, she ate it. To her shock, she started growing and growing until her head hit the ceiling. She was now much too large to go through the door into the garden, and she began to cry in frustration. Her tears formed a large pool around her, filling the hallway. Just then, Alice noticed the white rabbit again, now carrying a pair of white gloves and a fan. She tried to speak to him, but he was too frightened and dropped his belongings, running away. Alice picked up the fan and gloves, and as she fanned herself, she began to shrink again without realizing it. She soon found herself small enough to swim in her own pool of tears, which had formed into a sea. While swimming, Alice encountered a mouse who seemed friendly enough, and they began to talk as they swam together toward the shore. When they reached the shore, they joined a group of other animals, all of whom were soaked. To dry themselves off, the mouse suggested a caucus race, a nonsensical event where everyone ran around in circles without any rules or clear ending. When the race was over, everyone was declared a winner, and they all dried off. As Alice wandered through Wonderland, she met a series of strange characters. First, there was the caterpillar, sitting on a mushroom and smoking a hookah. He was rather stern and unhelpful, questioning Alice's identity and giving her cryptic advice about how to grow or shrink by eating different parts of the mushroom. Taking pieces from each side, Alice managed to return to her normal size. Continuing her journey, Alice came across a Cheshire cat perched in a tree. The cat had a wide grin and seemed to enjoy confusing her with its paradoxical statements. The cat suggested she visit either the Mad Hatter or the March Hare, both of whom were equally mad. Not knowing which way to go, Alice decided to visit the March Hare's house first. When she arrived at the March Hare's house, Alice found the March Hare and the Mad Hatter having a tea party with a sleepy dormouse. The table was set with many teapots and cups, but the conversation made no sense. They asked Alice riddles without answers and switched seats constantly, never finishing a single cup of tea. Frustrated by their madness, Alice left the tea party and wandered further into Wonderland. Next, Alice found herself in a garden where gardeners shaped like playing cards were painting white roses red. They explained that they had accidentally planted the wrong colour roses and were trying to fix their mistake before the Queen of Hearts arrived. Just then, the Queen and her entourage, also made of playing cards, appeared. The Queen was fierce and quick-tempered, constantly shouting, "Off with their heads!" at the slightest provocation. The Queen invited Alice to play a game of croquet, which turned out to be another bizarre affair. The balls were live hedgehogs, the mallets were flamingos, and the soldiers had to bend over to form the arches. The game was chaotic, with the Queen constantly ordering beheadings for anyone who displeased her, though no one seemed to be actually executed. Alice managed to keep her head by staying calm and polite. During the game, Alice met the Griffin, who led her to meet the Mock Turtle, a sorrowful creature who told Alice strange tales of his education under the sea. He described lessons like reeling and writhing and the lobster quadrille, a curious dance performed with lobsters. The Griffin and Mock Turtle even tried to teach Alice the dance, but it was too confusing for her. Suddenly, a cry was heard in the distance, calling Alice back to the courtroom. The Knave of Hearts was on trial for allegedly stealing the Queen's tarts, and Alice was summoned as a witness. The trial was absurd, with nonsensical rules and evidence. The jury was composed of various animals, and the King of Hearts acted as the judge. Despite the lack of any real proof, the Queen kept shouting for the Knave's execution. Frustrated by the absurdity of it all, Alice finally spoke up, declaring that the trial was nonsense. She was no longer afraid of the Queen or her threats. The court erupted in chaos, and the Queen's soldiers, the playing cards, rose up and flew at Alice, swarming around her. As they rushed at her, Alice realised they were just a pack of cards. She tried to swat them away, but everything began to spin around her. With a jolt, Alice awoke to find herself back on the riverbank with her sister. It had all been a dream. She sat up and rubbed her eyes, amazed at the strange adventure she had just experienced. Her sister gently encouraged her to go home for tea, but Alice lingered a moment longer, still lost in the wonder of her dream. As Alice walked home, she couldn't help but smile, thinking of all the curious characters and wild adventures she had encountered in Wonderland. She knew it was only a dream, but it felt so vivid and real. And though she was back in the real world, Alice knew she would always carry a bit of Wonderland with her, ready to be revisited in her dreams and imagination. And so, Alice returned to her ordinary life, but she was forever changed by her extraordinary journey through Wonderland. She had learned to embrace her curiosity and imagination, to question the world around her, and to stand up for herself even when things seemed most confusing and nonsensical. And from that day forward, she looked at the world with a bit more wonder and whimsy, knowing that adventures awaited just beyond the edges of her dreams. Thank you for listening to our narrated summary of this classic tale. We hope it gave you a relaxing break and that you enjoyed our journey through timeless literature. If today's summary caught your interest and you want to dive deeper into the full story, just check out the link in the comments for the complete book. Don't forget to subscribe for more soothing reads. Until next time, keep the stories alive and the pages turning.